Okay, we're back with another one. It's going to be fixing the electric start on one of these CCR Powerlites. If you have one and you plug it in and it's just dead, well, you need a new electric start motor. But if you plug it in, it goes zzz, makes a bunch of noise, kind of like a grinding. Chances are this bracket right here is broke. I will give you guys the part number. It's 100-3443. These are super common to break on these. I've replaced hundreds of them. I already have the back off your 2 5/16 here. So first thing you want to do is we got to drain the tank out. We're going to be pulling the hood and everything off this thing. We'll get this fuel line off. See if we can't pull her off. This might be on there a little bit better than I thought. I always like to use a paint pan to drain my fuel in. There we go. So we'll let that drain out of there. And we'll get the hood ready to come off, and I'll show you guys the steps to replace it. Now that the fuel's out of this machine, the first thing I'm going to do is I take my recoil rope, I pull it all the way out, or not all the way, but I pull it out far enough to be able to put it up here around the handle. I'll put it like this. I don't untie these so I don't run the risk of it snapping back in. Flip your machine up if you got the room. Like this. You're going to unplug your on-off switch, and you're going to take your primer line off. You're also going to take the top plate off this. These 2 5/16 here. You're going to have to take off. And then I believe these are 1/4 inch nuts right here for the electric start. You got to get that down. The wire's not long enough. So we'll go ahead and pop those off. Get this key out of the way. These are the 2 5/16 here. This job's a little bit involved. You're definitely going to need a decent set of tools. Now we'll get this plastic out of our way so we can get to these 2 1/4 inch nuts right here that hold the electric start on. They hold the plug for the electric start. They're rather long, so I'll go ahead and get these done off camera. Also on the sides here, you got a 5/16 here, you got one on the other side. Get that removed, and I'll get back to you guys as soon as we get those out. On the front cover of this machine, you're going to have fill-ups here on each side with a 7/16 nut on the back side. What I like to do is use my cordless impact. You can see the bit I got in there. I think it's like a number 3 or something. Don't quote me. These can be stubborn. I've had to cut them out in the past. So use your breakaway or whatever. You're gonna have a washer on the bottom and the top, just like this. Washer at the top, washer on the bottom, lock nut. I'll get the other side out. We'll get this hood pulled back, and I'll show you what we're working with. Okay, now that we got all that stuff loosened up, we'll go ahead and slide the hood back and just lay it off to the side just like I did. Now here's your problem right here. Your electric start, the bracket always breaks on these right here. The ear will break off, and that will cause it not to engage. As you can see, it's laying there. Now you should change the gear on this when you do it. This gear is all right. It'll work for them. It's a plastic gear. It's not the worst I've seen. It's not the best. So what you're going to have to do is, these are 3/8 bolts. They're Loctited in. Let me show you. There should be one here. As you can see, it's gone, so I'm going to have to find one. And then you got one right here. Now these are Loctited. Getting them out is the easy part. Getting them back in, sometimes you need a swivel. It can be a little bit tricky. So let me get this one out, and then I'll show you how to get the motor apart to replace the plastic housing right here that's broke. Alright, we'll pop this cover off. Choose a flathead. Kind of get in between there. Now, what I like to do, I don't have the proper tool anymore. It's probably been lost years ago. Pull this back, and a lot of times I'll do, it's just a little C-clip, or like a little snap ring rather. I'll take a pair of side cutters, and I'll kind of just lift it up with the blade, like so. Once you get it started, she'll come off. There you go. There you have it. Right off. Didn't damage it. Now pull your spring and your retainer off. These can be a little bit burred up and kind of hard to get off. Sometimes you really got to work with them. This one's really burred up. I'm gonna have to take a little file I clean this lip off to be able to slide this retainer off of it. I'll go ahead and do that. Now that the burrs are cleaned off, I'll go ahead and slide the retainer off. Sometimes you got to work with it a little bit, get it off there. Come on, there we go. Just like that. Take your spring off. Now turn your gear. You see your gear spin off. Like I said, guys, this gear isn't in the best of shape, but it'll work. Now take your 3/8 and your Phillips and get these two long bolts out that hold your starter housing together. I'll finish getting these out. Got the nuts off on them. Now you're just going to go ahead and lift this out just like that. Take your bolts out of it. In the inside, you're going to have this little metal piece. It lays in here like this. So go over to your new one. Pop that in there just like that. That's weird. Oh, okay. Pop that in there like that. Then you're going to go ahead. You're going to see how it lines up. You can see where your electric start wire is. Slide it back on. Put your bolts back in. Somebody's already done this once on this machine, I can tell you right now, because number one, it's missing a bolt, so who knows how long it lasted. And number two, that's not the factory zip tie. Never put that on there. Should have cut the extra off. Now we're going to tighten these 3/8 back up, and then we'll mount this motor. This probably broke because they didn't have this zip tie tight enough on there, and this motor is just rocking from the torque. Let me get these tightened back down and we'll mount it. Got the bolts nice and tightened up. Now we got to get the gear back on. Like I said, if you're watching this video, you're going to notice the gear's chewed up a little bit. I'm going to see if it'll still grab. If it doesn't grab, I'll have them grab me another gear for this thing. Now you're going to put your spring on. You're going to put your retainer back on. Pay attention. You'll see it's got a disc shape that locks the clip in there. And if you don't have the clip tool, they do make a special one. What I like to do is I'll set the clip on like this, and I'll take an 8mm socket and I'll just push it down right here. I'll try to hold it so you guys can see, and I'll just push, and then there you go, that clip will snap in. What I also like to do is I'll take a pair of vice grips. Let me go get a pair, or I should say a big pair of pliers. I'll hold this retainer back, and I'll take that little clip and I'll just make sure that it's bent around this shaft so it doesn't pop off. Yes, I've had them pop off on me in the past. Very rare. So there you have it. Now you'll see that when you go to put this back up, this retainer, or this round metal part here, I forget the name of it. I used to know the name of all this stuff. You want it so that clip is sitting inside of there, and what it'll do is it'll hold the clip on. It'll hold it in place so it doesn't come off on you. You might have to work with it. I might need a little pick. Go get one right here. Push it in a little bit. So this one's definitely been off before, I'll tell you right now. So let me get it worked into its proper spot so it locks in. There we have it, just like that. You guys will see that. See how it lays back in there? Let me bring the camera up close. Now it's locked in. Now you pop your rubber cap back on. Just push it on. There you go. Okay, let's mount the motor. Now I did have to drum up a bolt for this, so I can already hear in the comments, oh, it's not the right bolt. Well, the bolt I got will work. If this was a shop setting, yes, I'd order the right bolt, and absolutely yes, I would order a new gear for this thing. But this is a good buddy of mine. I know him pretty well. I know what he expects, what he wants. He was just happy I was willing to see if I could get the electric start going for him. This is where it gets tricky. I like to use a 3/8 1/4-inch drive and a swivel. And you'll have to line up your two bolt holes. You'll see them. You almost need to do this from the bottom side of the machine. It's really going to be hard to see. You tip this bad boy up and actually try to do it this way. What I can do is I can put my hand down in here to get it started. Now you can use Loctite on these. From the factory they are Loctited. I've never personally used it on them in the shop. I've never had one come loose, knock on wood. So you can see, guys, it's hard to see my hand in there, but that lower bolt is a real bugger to get started. That's why I like to use this swivel with an extension. Definitely almost a must-have for this job. So I got that one started. Now the top, like I said, I did have to use a different bolt than the OEM. Your top bolt will go right in here. Hopefully you guys can see the bottom bolt down in there. You can see where I'm pointing. Let me get the top bolt in right here, and I'll show you how we button this up. If you guys can see down in there, you definitely see why I like the swivel. So go ahead and tighten her up. You gotta get pretty decently tight on these, but you don't want to go tight enough where you bust that plastic. Now the top one, I had to put a little bit bigger of a head in there, so I got to see if I can get a socket on it or not. Now we got our two bolts in. You can see the starter has a little bit of wiggle. That's why I think from the factory Toro designed this big zip tie. You see on the back of the block down here, there's an aluminum chunk right here. Put this zip tie on. You want a big heavy duty zip tie, and you want to make sure that it goes over that aluminum. I'm going to reuse what they had on here, and then we'll cinch it down nice and tight, and it should hopefully not bust the bracket. So let me get this slipped on. You're going to see on the electric start motor, you got these little plastic tabs. They hold that zip tie on the back side. I hope you guys can see down in there. You can see I got it around the aluminum, and it really sturdies that motor up. But like I said, whoever worked on this last, I know the shop. Hopefully you can't see in the video. Let's see if we can get this any tighter on there. Nope, that should be good. So cut that off, and we'll give her the old testy before we put it back together. Always test these before you put the hood and stuff back on. You won't be happy taking it all back apart if it doesn't work. I popped the plug wire off. Found the longest extension cord possible, because well, the other ones are hooked to the Christmas lights. We won't even get into that. Let's plug her in. Now there's a thing that our customers used to always say in the shop. No, it's not true. They would go out to Toro and they'd lose their cord and they'd buy another cord. They think it has to be a Toro cord. Guys, you can use any extension cord on these. It doesn't have to be a special cord. All the time we'd get people, oh, I didn't know that. I spent all this money. Had to order it. The only problem I got here is getting my extension cord plugged into this thing. There we go. Let's give her a test spin. There we go. Just like downtown, baby. Pop your plug wire back on. When we wrap this extension cord up, we'll put her back together. I think what I'm going to do is, since you guys took it apart, you know how to put it back together, hopefully. So I'm just going to let the video roll. When I edit it, I'll probably speed it up. We'll get this baby back together. And we'll be all set with this project. Bet you I could probably get this back together maybe in less than 2 minutes, maybe. I don't know, I don't want to get too cocky. But man, I'll tell you what, I've sure done a lot of those. I think at the shop when we were doing these, it was around 75 or 100 bucks. I think it's 75 bucks to have this done. It's so common on these, they break all the time. Another thing I wanted to mention while I'm putting this back together, on your electric start handles, let me show you. That's another common thing. Well, let me get this plate on first. If you're a good service tech, you should do this for your customer. Save them a broken recoil, but of course it's less money for the shop. It might help if I orientated all the lines and everything right underneath here. So we got to get this back in. A little electric start box. Those electric start bolts, they're a mile long. I should have used my cordless side ratchet, but that's all right. It's a Friday. The only thing we're in a hurry for is to have a cold beer. I'll pop this back on, and I want to show you guys what I mean about the recoil ropes. We used to get people all the time, "Oh, you just serviced my machine and the rope broke. Didn't you check it?" Well, yes and no. Yeah, but what I'm going to show you is, come on. These are notorious, especially on your CCR 2450s and your 3650s. Those are a real pain to do a recoil rope on. We used to get good money for that. Undo the rope, or get the rope off. On the very end here, always look to make sure it's not fraying. This one was. I cut the piece off. I don't know where it went. I just shortened up the handle maybe by about 4 inches. Customer really won't even notice a difference, but just do that for them. Well, unless you want to get the money out of having them bring it back with a broke recoil rope. All right, hook our primer line back up. Hook our kill switch back up. I've seen it too with these fuel lines and these primer lines, guys. When you put this back together, let me show you in here how I have it laid out. Make sure you don't have it running in front of the rope. Seen that a few times. We won't discuss how people do stuff. Just sometimes they don't know any better. Pop this clip back on for the fuel line. I gotta get these out. Get the back cover back on this machine. Boom, pop your back cover on. Now also in my video earlier getting this thing running, I was talking about checking the belts on these. Well, it's sweet when you got the top off like that. You can look down in there with a flashlight and you can look at the belt and you can get a pretty good general understanding if it needs a belt or not. It's an upsell too. You can always sell a belt while you're working on it, or a lot of times we just put them on and say, hey, you needed a belt, you want it to break or not. We'll tighten this down. That's it, guys. Oh, I wish I had that snowmobile off my lift. All right. Now you see what I mean? These are the tools I used. So, you know, you need basic things, but there's that swivel and that 1/4 inch drive is the ticket. So there you go. I want to say thanks for watching. Please keep smashing that subscribe button. You guys have been really awesome to me. I appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one.